There's a kind of tiredness that has no name. You sleep the whole night through. You close your eyes a reasonable hour. You rest your head on a soft pillow. And yet, when the morning comes, you wake up feeling as though you never slept at all. Your shoulders are heavy. Your mind is foggy. Your legs feel like they're still asleep, even as the rest of you tries to rise and meet the day. If this feeling is familiar to you, you're not alone. Millions of people all over the world open their eyes each morning and feel, instead of rest, a strange and quiet exhaustion. And here is the truly puzzling part. This tiredness is new. It is not something our grandparents complained about. It is not something written about in old letters, old diaries, old kitchen conversations. Somewhere in the space of just a few generations, something changed. Something was lost. So today, let us take a slow walk backward. Let us remember what mornings used to feel like. Let us remember the quiet strength that our mothers and fathers, our grandmothers and grandfathers, carried with them through long days of real work, real weather, real hardship. And somehow, still, they woke up with energy in their bones. This is not a story about medicine. This is not a story about supplements or strange new diets. This is a story about remembering, because sometimes the answers we are searching for were never lost in the future. They were left behind in the past. The grandmother who never seemed tired, let me tell you about a woman. We will call her Eleanor, though she could be your grandmother, your aunt, your neighbor from long ago, or someone entirely from your own memory. Eleanor woke before the sun, not because an alarm clock screamed at her from the nightstand, but because her body simply knew. The sky would still be a deep blue-gray, the birds only just beginning their first quiet songs, and Eleanor would already be moving through her small kitchen, lighting the stove, filling a kettle, humming some old tune that nobody ever taught her, but that she always seemed to know. By the time the sun had properly risen, Eleanor had already kneaded bread dough with her bare hands, fed the chickens in the yard, swept the porch, and started a pot of something warm and slow cooking for the family supper, many hours away. And she did all of this without complaint, without exhaustion, without dragging her feet the way so many of us do now on our way to the coffee machine. Was Eleanor simply built differently than we are? Was she made of stronger material? No. Eleanor's body was the same as yours. Her heart, her lungs, her muscles, her need for rest, all of it worked exactly the way yours does. What was different was not her biology. What was different was her rhythm. Her days moved with a pattern that her body understood completely, a pattern shaped by sunlight, by movement, by real food, by community, and by rest that actually meant rest. We're going to walk through each of these pieces together, slowly, the way Eleanor might have walked you through her garden, pointing out one plant at a time. The sun was their clock before electric light filled every room of every house, before glowing screens sat beside every bed. Human beings lived according to the sun. When the sun rose, the body rose. When the sun fell, the body began preparing itself for rest. This was not a discipline that people forced upon themselves. It was simply the natural order of things. There was no lamp switch to keep the evening bright long after supper. There was a candle, perhaps, or a fire, dim and gentle, nothing like the harsh white light that fills our living rooms and bedrooms today. Our bodies carry, even now, an ancient internal clock. Some call it the body's rhythm, others simply call it instinct. This clock listens closely to light. When our eyes see bright light, especially the cool blue light of the daytime sky, the body understands that it is time to be alert, awake, and active. When our eyes see darkness, or the warm orange light of a fire or candle, the body understands that it is time to slow down, to release the chemicals that bring on sleepiness, to prepare for deep and proper rest. Eleanor's body received this signal clearly every single day. Bright morning sun meant wake up and move. Soft evening firelight meant slow down and rest. There was no confusion. Now think about your own evenings. Think about the television glowing in the corner of the room long after supper. Think about the phone screen held close to the face, scrolled through in the final hour before sleep, its cool light pouring directly into the eyes. The body receives this light and becomes confused. It believes in some old and primal part of itself that the sun is still high, that it is still the middle of the afternoon, that there is no need yet to prepare for rest. And so, when we finally do turn off the light and lay our heads down, our bodies have not been given the proper signal to wind down. We fall asleep later than we should, we sleep less deeply than we should, and we wake up feeling as though the night passed us by without ever truly resting us. This alone, this simple loss of a natural rhythm with the sun, may be one of the largest and quietest reasons for the tiredness so many people feel today. The forgotten power of morning sunlight. There is something else Eleanor did without ever knowing the science behind it, without ever needing to know it. Each morning, she stepped outside. She walked to the chicken coop. She hung the laundry on the line. She walked to the well or to the garden, and in doing so, her eyes and her skin received something precious. Morning sunlight. This morning light does something remarkable inside the human body. It tells the brain that a new day has begun. It helps set the entire rhythm of the day, adjusting hormones that affect energy, mood, and, eventually, that very same evening, sleep. People who step outside first thing in the morning, even for a short walk, even simply to sit on a porch and breathe the morning air, often report feeling more awake during the day and more naturally sleepy come evening. It is as though the body needs this morning signal the way a plant needs water. Without it, everything inside slowly falls out of rhythm. Today, how many of us wake up and immediately reach for a phone in a dim bedroom? Curtains still closed, blinds still drawn? How many of us go from bed to bathroom to breakfast table to car to office without ever once standing beneath open sky and letting the morning light touch our face? Our ancestors were not trying to be healthy in some deliberate, disciplined way. They were simply living the only way they knew how to live, a way that happened to align perfectly with what the human body actually needs. We, on the other hand, have built entire lives that quietly work against our own biology, and then we wonder why we wake up tired. Real food, grown by real hands, let us walk now from Eleanor's porch in her kitchen. Because there's another secret hiding here, something just as important as the sunlight. The food Eleanor ate came from soil she could touch, from animals she could name, from bread she kneaded with her own two hands. There were no long lists of unfamiliar words on packages, because there were no packages. There was flour, water, salt, and time. There were vegetables pulled from the earth that very morning, still holding the smell of soil. There was milk, still warm, straight from the cow. There was meat, prepared slowly, often over many hours, never rushed. This kind of food nourished the body deeply. It was rich in the nutrients the human body has relied upon for countless generations. Iron for strong blood, healthy fats for the brain and nervous system, real vitamins absorbed directly from real plants and real animals raised on real pasture. Compare this to much of what fills our plates today. So much of our modern food has traveled a long journey through factories before it ever reaches our table. It is often stripped of its natural nutrients, then artificially filled back in with only a portion of what was lost. It is loaded with sugar, refined and quick to enter the bloodstream, giving a short burst of energy followed by a heavy, dragging crash. This crash is one of the most common causes of daytime exhaustion. A body that runs on quick sugars and refined starches spikes and falls, over and over throughout the day, leaving us reaching for another cup of coffee, another sugary snack, just to keep our eyes open. Our ancestors' bodies, fed on slow-burning, whole, unprocessed foods, experienced no such crash. Their energy rose gently in the morning and stayed steady, like a fire that had been built properly, log by log, rather than lit with a quick and desperate splash of fuel that burns bright and then dies out. And there's something else, something less scientific, but perhaps just as important. Eleanor's food was made with care. It was made by hands that loved the people who would eat it. There is a kind of nourishment in that too, one that cannot be measured by any chart or number, but one that surely fed something deeper than the stomach. Bodies built for movement now. Let us follow Eleanor through her day, because after the kitchen came the fields, the barn, the garden, the washing, the walking. Our ancestors' bodies moved constantly, but not in the way we think of exercise today, not as a separate task squeezed into a busy schedule, done on a machine in a special room. Their movement was woven into the very fabric of daily life. Walking to the market, carrying water, chopping wood, bending to pull weeds, kneading dough with strong arms, washing clothes by hand, wringing them out, hanging them to dry, climbing stairs, walking to visit neighbors, walking to church, walking simply because there was often no other way to get where they needed to go. This constant, gentle, whole-body movement kept their muscles strong, their joints flexible, their hearts healthy, and remarkably, it kept their energy levels high rather than low. This may seem strange to hear because movement takes energy, does it not? Should it not leave a person more tired, not less? Here is the wonderful truth about the human body. Gentle, regular movement throughout the day actually creates more energy than it uses. It improves circulation, sending oxygen and nutrients to every part of the body. It strengthens the heart, allowing it to work more efficiently. It helps regulate mood and reduce the kind of restless, anxious tiredness that so many people feel today. Movement was simply part of being alive back then. There was no need to set aside a special hour, or special clothing, or drive to a special building in order to move one's body. The days themselves demanded it, gently, steadily, from morning until evening. Now, think of how many of our modern days look instead. We sit in a car or a bus, we sit at a desk for many hours, we sit again on the way home, and we sit once more in front of a television in the evening. Our bodies, built across countless generations for movement, are asked instead to remain still for almost the entire day. This stillness does not bring rest. It brings a strange kind of stiffness, a sluggish heaviness, a body that forgets how to feel truly awake because it has forgotten how to properly move. And so, ironically, the less we move, the more tired we often feel, while our ancestors, who moved constantly, felt strong and alert. The deep rest of the afternoon, there is one more piece of Eleanor's daily rhythm worth remembering, something that has almost entirely disappeared from modern life. The afternoon rest. In many parts of the world, in many generations past, there existed a quiet pause in the middle of the day. Some called a rest, some called a nap, some simply called it the quiet hour. Work would slow. Shutters might close against the heat of the afternoon sun. A person might sit in a chair or lie down for a short while, closing their eyes, letting the body settle before rising again to finish the day's tasks. This was not laziness. This was wisdom, passed down long before anyone had the words to explain why it worked. The human body naturally experiences a dip in alertness in the early afternoon, a kind of second wave of tiredness that arrives a few hours after midday. Our ancestors, living closely with their own bodies, noticed this and simply honored it. They rested briefly and then rose refreshed, ready for the second half of their day. Today, this afternoon dip is treated as an enemy to be fought rather than a signal to be honored. Instead of a short rest, we reach for more caffeine, more sugar, more forced alertness through sheer will. We push through the body's natural request for a pause, and in doing so, we build up a kind of debt, an accumulated tiredness that never gets properly repaid. Over days, weeks, months, and years, this debt grows. And this is perhaps one of the clearest answers to our original question. We wake up tired not only because of how we sleep at night, but because we never truly rest during the day either. We are, in a very real sense, running on empty long before evening ever arrives, and then wondering why the morning brings no relief. The quiet nights of long ago let us return, now, to Eleanor's evenings, because there is something beautifully simple about how her nights unfolded, something worth remembering carefully. As the sun began to set, the household would slowly gather. Perhaps the family shared a simple supper together, seated at the same table, speaking of the day's small events. Perhaps there was a fire, crackling softly, filling the room with warm, flickering light. Perhaps there was a story told aloud, a hymn sung softly, a letter read by lamplight, or simply quiet conversation between people who loved each other. There were no screens glowing in every hand. There was no endless scroll of news and worry and comparison. There was no artificial light forcing the body to remain in a state of false daytime long past the hour it should have been resting. As the evening deepened, the light in the home would naturally soften and fade. Candles would be blown out one by one. And when the household finally lay down to sleep, they laid down in true darkness, a darkness the body understood completely, a darkness that told every cell within them, it is time now, truly time to rest. This darkness matters more than most people today realize. The human body produces a hormone in true darkness that helps guide it gently and deeply into sleep. Even small amounts of light in a bedroom, a street lamp through the curtains, the glow of a phone charging nearby, the blinking light of some electronic device, can interrupt this process. The body remains partly alert, partly unsure whether it is truly night or not, and the resulting sleep is shallow rather than deep. Eleanor's nights were dark, truly, fully dark, and in that darkness, her body was finally completely free to do what it had been designed to do, to repair, to restore, to prepare her fully for the sunlight and the labor of the following morning. Worry was different then. Too, there's a part of this story that has little to do with light or food or movement, and everything to do with the mind. Our ancestors certainly had worries. They worried about harvests, about weather, about illness, about war, about hardship of every kind. Life was, in many ways, far harder than the comfortable lives so many of us live today. And yet, there is reason to believe that the particular flavor of their worry was different from the constant, buzzing, scattered anxiety so many of us carry now. Their worries tended to be immediate and physical, tied to real and present things, a field that needed rain, a child who had a fever, a roof that needed mending. Once the sun set and there was nothing more to be done that day, the worry, for the most part, could be set down, at least until morning. There was no glowing screen delivering an endless stream of faraway troubles, tragedies from every corner of the world, comparisons to other people's seemingly perfect lives, notifications demanding attention at every hour. Today, our minds rarely get to fully set down their worry. Even in the quiet of night, thoughts of tomorrow's tasks, unanswered messages, distant news, and endless comparisons continue to hum quietly in the background, keeping some small part of the brain alert and unsettled even while the body tries to sleep. This constant low hum of mental noise is exhausting in a way that is difficult to measure but easy to feel. It is perhaps one of the greatest, quietest thieves of our modern energy, robbing us not through any single dramatic event, but through the slow accumulation of 1,000 small, unresolved concerns carried silently, night after night. Our ancestors often had a practice to release this weight before sleep, whether through prayer, through quiet reflection, through a simple conversation with a loved one at the end of the day, or through the simple ritual of saying thank you for what the day had given, however small. This release mattered. It allowed the mind, like the body, to truly rest, rather than simply lying still while still secretly working. Community. The energy we forgot we needed. There is one final piece of this story, and it may be the most tender of them all. Eleanor did not live in isolation. Her days were woven together with the people around her, neighbors who visited without calling ahead, family who gathered for meals as a matter of course, communities who came together for celebrations, for harvests, for hardships too. Loneliness, in the way so many people experience it today, was far less common, simply because life itself was built around connection. There's a kind of energy that comes only from being truly seen and truly known by other people, sitting at a table with familiar faces, laughing over some small joke, sharing the weight of a hard day with someone who understands. This connection feeds something in the human spirit that no amount of sleep or food or sunlight can fully replace. Today, many people live surrounded by more people than ever before, and yet feel more isolated than any generation before them. Conversations happen through small glowing screens rather than across a table. Neighbors may live only steps away and never once share a meal together. This quiet isolation drains a kind of energy that is harder to name than physical tiredness, but just as real, just as heavy. Our ancestors' energy, then, was never only about their bodies. It was about their bonds. It was about waking each morning knowing they were needed, known, and never truly alone, bringing the old wisdom into today. So here we are, having walked slowly through Eleanor's mornings, her kitchen, her fields, her quiet evenings, and her tight-knit community. What do we do now with all of this remembering? We are not able to return fully to the world she lived in, nor would most of us truly wish to give up the comforts and conveniences that fill our modern lives. But we can borrow gently from her wisdom, weaving small pieces of it back into our own days. We can step outside in the morning, even for a few quiet minutes, and let real sunlight touch our face before we ever look at a screen. We can choose, where possible, food that is closer to the earth, simpler, less processed, cooked with care rather than rushed through in a hurry. We can move our bodies throughout the day, not only in a single scheduled burst of exercise, but in small, gentle ways woven naturally into our routines: a short walk, some gardening, climbing the stairs instead of waiting for the elevator. We can honor the quiet dip of the afternoon with a short pause rather than another cup of coffee, even if that pause is only a few minutes of closed eyes and slow breathing. We can dim the lights in the evening, put away the glowing screens an hour before bed, and let our homes grow soft and dark, the way Eleanor's home once did, so that our bodies remember what true night feels like. We can set down our worries before sleep, through prayer, through gratitude, through a few quiet words shared with someone we love, releasing the mental noise so that rest can be complete. And we can reach out more often to the people around us, sharing a meal, a phone call, a visit, rebuilding in small ways the connection that once came so naturally and that fed something in us just as surely as food and sleep ever did. A final thought: perhaps the tiredness so many of us feel today is not a mystery after all. Perhaps it is simply the quiet cost of having drifted away from rhythms that once came so naturally to those who came before us. Rhythms of sunlight and darkness, of real food and real movement, of true rest and true connection. Eleanor never read a study on hormones or circadian rhythms. She never counted a single nutrient or measured a single hour of exercise. She simply lived in step with the world around her. And in doing so, she lived with an energy that so many of us now search for desperately, in supplements, in strong coffee, in quick fixes that never quite seem to work. Perhaps the secret was never hidden at all. Perhaps it was simply waiting patiently in the memory of those who lived before us, in the stories our grandparents told, in the quiet wisdom of mornings that began with sunlight and evenings that ended in true and gentle darkness. If this story stirred something familiar in you, some memory of a grandmother's kitchen, a grandfather's early rising, a childhood evening lit only by lamplight and quiet conversation, we would love to hear it. Share your memory in the comments below. Someone else, reading it, might just remember something they had long forgotten too. And if these old stories and this old wisdom means something to you, consider staying with us a little longer. There are more memories to walk through together, more quiet truths from the past waiting patiently to be remembered. Thank you for spending this time with us today. Rest well tonight, and may tomorrow's morning sun find you a little more like Eleanor, waking not to an alarm, but to the simple, steady energy of a life lived gently, in rhythm with the world around you.